Thank you to everyone who showed up in person. That is
Dedication. man.
yeah, either someone's really mad or did you walk, Scott?
Really
No.
bored.
Yeah,
Did a walk.
really
You
mad,
probably got
really
here quicker.
bored, really interested.
It took me 17 minutes to drive to Kingsland Hardware. Yeah, like 5:30. I couldn't believe it. I think the fastest to traffic was 7 miles an hour.
Yeah. Maybe. Oh,
I love that bridge.
Yeah,
you will.
She's a beaut.
she is. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. I'm Grace Lesperance, Cascade Supervisor. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Ritzy,
Here.
trustee Nordhook,
Here.
Supervisor Lesperance,
Here.
treasurer Correspond.
Here.
Trustee Nordike.
He's excused, out of town.
Thank you. Trustee Shipley
Present.
and clerk Slater.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion for approval of the agenda?
So move.
Shipley supports.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have one presentation this evening. It will be on the initial concept drawings for the rec park out by the airport. Mike Reese is here from Troyer Group. He also lives in Cascade. And then we also have our new Parks and Facilities Director, Dan Zwick. Manager Smith, do you want to kick this off? Anything
Sure.
you want to say?
Well, this has just been something that the Parks Commission has been working on for some time. The board approved the master plan or the plan to be done earlier this year. And then obviously there was a survey that was done. Mike discussed the survey results with the board, I believe a month or so ago, and then went back and drew up the 3 concepts, which he's wanting to present tonight, and then discuss next steps.
All right. Thank you. Good evening. So about a month ago, we presented the survey results, and based on those and just looking at parks and recreation trends regionally and nationally, along with the existing site conditions and the potential of the park, came up with 3 different concepts that I can share tonight. These have quite a few similarities with recommendations, the same on all 3 that kind of make sense in certain areas of the park. And then there's some that have completely different between the 3 options. Kind of the main feature in the park that kind of lend itself to these 3 options is the baseball fields, whether those would be kept or removed and repurposed. So this first concept is you see the baseball fields remain. And I will say, talking with Jade and Dan, that there's to go next year and this to do some slight improvements to the field, just kind of low-hanging fruit stuff to be able to get them playable. And then we'll also be able to see more of the usage once they get improved a little bit. But no improvements that would affect kind of the long-term plans for this plan. Because as I mentioned in last month with the public input survey, it was pretty low ranked as far as existing fields being used and also as a proposed improvement. But part of that could be because of the condition of the fields. So this first concept, the fields remain. So looking at doing improving the soccer field to a synthetic turf field and adding 2 7v7 youth fields up by the pickleball courts, also expanding the pickleball courts. This pickleball expansion, something that's shown in each concept. And then I guess backing up, some of the other things that remain consistent throughout all concepts is just integrating more native plantings in the park. You can kind of see in the plans, some areas shown where you have some prairie plantings, wildflower plantings, just to reduce the mowed lawn and maintenance that isn't really used, but has to be maintained all the time. And then just adding, creating habitat, giving some ecological benefit to the park. And just kind of, making it more beautiful. So that's consistent throughout the concepts. The low area that kind of runs north to south between pickleball and basketball courts and heading down to the pond, being able to have native plantings there, kind of best management practice for stormwater runoff to be able to clean that. And then also taking advantage of the pond. A lot of people, myself included, when this process started, didn't realize that was back there and that could be a part of the park that's enjoyed by residents. So creating a spur off of the walking path to that pond, maybe adding a small pier for fishing or just access out to look at the water. Also up to the northwest towards the entrance, that area just it's open lawn currently with the disc golf. So again, adding some prairie plantings and just like a cracked limestone trail through there that you could walk through that prairie area. Could be a small loop off the dog park as well for dogs on a leash, and then continue to serve the disc golf. So those are some things that are consistent throughout the concepts. Another thing that we've added in each one in some form is an ice rink. This was one of the highest rated things from the public input survey. And with the sledding hill already there, I think it's a great opportunity to kind of have a winter recreation hub. So in this concept, the ice rink is up towards the existing playground area. And it would be, let's see, letter M, which is the walled soccer field and ice rink. So this would be kind of a small soccer field that would have the boards around it. We've seen these in some other parks. So that could be used during the summer for soccer, kind of similar to futsal soccer hybrid almost. And then in the winter, you already have those boards up, so it could be easily converted into an ice rink. And you wouldn't have to take down everything seasonally. Also located at the base of the sledding hill to kind of have that winter recreation up in that area. Also expanding the playground and adding a splash pad up in that area. A splash pad was, again, one of the highest rated things from the public input survey, and something that we thought Cascade could use without one being in the township other than the small one at Tassel Park. Also adding some restrooms and parking, especially we heard by the pickleball courts and dog park needing more parking and restrooms. Letter D, there's a pavilion and restroom. So adding one by pickleball and then also up by the soccer field. Let's see. So I think that covers most of the items for the first concept. The second one, this removes both baseball fields. So that opens up that center area for a turf soccer field. And then as well as to open lawn space that could be used for soccer, lacrosse, any sports, community events. And then on this one, we propose shifting the pickleball towards the expressway. And this was something that was discussed at the last Parks Committee meeting. If there's a desire, especially if there's a desire to add lighting and kind of have a larger pickleball complex, with the proximity to the neighborhood, it may be better to do this farther from the residential area and closer to the expressway. So you're not having the noise and the light kind of going into that neighborhood as much. The pickleball courts themselves, they aren't in great shape. Could use a improvement and overlay, but there is some decent cracking through there where if you just did a 1.5 inch asphalt overlay on there, it would be a bit of a Band-Aid. The cracking will probably come through within a few years. So there would be some, even renovating the existing courts would have some cost to it. So if it was going to be it'd be a little bit more expensive for sure to move it down here. But there could be some benefit depending on what the real goal of this pickleball courts is. And then with that being shifted down there, it opens up the current area for kind of a hub of field soccer, where you could kind of have all of the youth soccer in the same area. Also with this, we had proposed a larger pavilion ice skating rink, which is letter K. So again, this center of the park would kind of become the large event space hub. It could be used for summer events if there was a farmer's market, or other things like that could be used here, other community events. Winter, it could be used as an ice rink. Having the pavilion covering is definitely, we lost screen again. The pavilion would help just for shade though, and maintenance of the ice, especially with warmer winters. If you don't have that, the ice takes a little bit more maintenance. So now, of course, having this item is a lot more cost associated with it than some of the other concepts. So hoping again, potential for grant funding, local donors, business donors, things like that. We could have naming rights to the pavilion and that ice skating rink. And then up by the playground would just be the splash pad. Let's see. And then another difference on this concept was kind of in the area where the existing volleyball court is in the southeast, since that's kind of a more natural area, doing a natural playground there with a pavilion. And you guys have paper copies that you're looking at? Okay. And then the final concept, this keeps one of the baseball fields. So there'd still be a place, that people could get out there and play. It could be used by local baseball leagues. And it would still allow for a more dedicated soccer field, multi-use field next to it that would kind of, use the space a little bit better for those type of sports. And then the existing soccer field towards the expressway could be converted to a synthetic turf field, and then improving 2 small youth fields by the pickleball courts. So that's kind of the main difference of the 3 options is how those baseball fields are treated, whether we keep both, keep one, or remove both. And then another difference on this one, up towards the existing playground, the splash pad and ice rink is a hybrid. So you can do it. It can be a splash pad in the summer, ice rink in the winter. Essentially, you have the cooling tubes and equipment in the concrete of the splash pad. So in the winter, that could be flooded, and those chilling equipment would keep the ice throughout the winter months. And then with this becoming more of a increased usage in the winter, replacing the existing restrooms with a larger restroom and pavilion, could perhaps have skate rental or concessions in there that would lend itself towards this ice skating rink. So those are kind of the 3 different concepts. Again, some things remain consistent. The main differences being the baseball fields, what type of ice rink and where that's located, and also the pickleball courts, how those are expanded, and whether those could get relocated. I will also mention next Tuesday, the Parks Committee is having a presentation from the Grand Rapids Pickleball Club. So they're going to talk a little bit more about the Belknap facility and kind of what that area usage could be for pickleball. And it would kind of be for, board and township to decide what we really want this pickleball to be, if it's a larger kind of destination pickleball area or something that's more focused on residents, local residents playing. Would love to discuss these concepts. I did kind of review these with Dan and Jade and the Parks Committee. So I want to get kind of all the discussion and then work towards finalizing a concept. And of course, with the amount of improvements here, it would be prioritized and phased. It wouldn't be something that can be implemented in one project, but certain elements of the plan could align with certain funding mechanisms, potentially appeal to donors. So having the plan in place would hopefully be able to accelerate that implementation and build towards that long-term goal. So any questions or comments? John?
I've got one. I was a resident here when we built that rec park originally.
When was that, John? Just,
Oh, let me see. That was back in about 1972, maybe, when we started. And one of the things that stuck in a lot of residents' craw, so to speak, is that when the tennis courts were built, the residents were excluded from using them. They were built for the sole use of the Forest Hills High School tennis teams.
Okay.
And I would very strongly recommend that we don't go down that road again, especially with pickleball.
Yeah.
And pickleball is, I understand it's great, very popular today. Hopefully it's popular tomorrow too. And I think that she did very well at saying, well, if we're gonna have nighttime pickleball, maybe we shouldn't have it up by the residents up there. Maybe it should be down there. So good thinking on that. So I'm interested to see where this goes and how it goes.
That's something we've definitely heard on other parks projects and pickleball projects is the neighbors with the noise, and especially if you add lighting where it extends the nighttime playing hours. It's
Sure.
one thing to have that during the day, but trying to
And
sleep.
I really like the concept of adding features that would make it a year-round type of destination place, for instance, ice skating rink. Do have some concerns about in one of the plans, putting the playground now down near the pond. That could be disastrous. If you got little ones that you have wander away when the parent's head is turned.
Yeah.
But yeah, good plans, all three of them, and I'd like to see it go forward.
So have you run any numbers on this?
There's not been budget estimates yet associated with like the full build out of these. So there's enough common elements that obviously the concept 2 would be the most expensive, where you're switching over the pickleball, adding that pavilion, the larger ice skating rink pavilion. The concept 1 would be the least expensive, where it keeps the baseball fields and more of the existing features remain the same.
Is it, or how much is that?
It probably would be somewhere in the ballpark of $1 million for that field.
One of the things that I would urge the decision makers to consider is doing it right this time, instead of, as you pointed out, a 1 inch of blacktop versus good substrate and in a decent paving concept, so that it lasts. And I know that at one time the softball fields were heavily used, but by the responses, it looks like they're not really valued anymore.
Yeah.
And Ada they put quite a bit of effort into the fields up there, including the Kiwanis Club. So where's the best bang for our money for the residents?
Yeah, exactly. And talking with the Ada Park superintendent, they have their softball leagues. but wouldn't really be something that Cascade, I know we're introducing more parks programming, but I don't know that having a competing adult softball league would really be
Correct.
something we'd want to jump into. So, you know, they rent theirs out just as much for lacrosse and soccer using the outfield and other non-baseball things. So there's something to be said to have a field for residents that want to, you know, still be able to use that. But according to the survey, there would be probably higher usage with some other amenities.
Looks like the walking trail gets the number one place.
Very well, yeah, walking trail, dog park, pickleball, very well used.
Thank you.
I guess I would tell, yeah, I would say that my least favorite of the three concepts would probably be number two. I'm not ready to give up on baseball yet. So I like, the other two, 1 and 3, I think have a little bit more of everything. And the other thing I would caution you on is, the native plantings throughout the park. Just so you're aware, back around 2008, 2012, somewhere in that time frame during the recession, the township had a couple of years there where they came up with the idea of not mowing a large portion of that park and let it become more natural. And that was not popular with the residents at all. In fact, I know a guy that was cutting the grass out there and he got assaulted because people were that angry about it. So it just, some people like some wide open spaces too in the park. So keep that in mind when you're figuring out how much area to.
Yeah, I think that would, there's certainly spaces that are difficult to use. But there is something to be said for just an open lawn space. Some of these introduce more of that. But I think there's also being able to, you know, have in construction and doing it properly with a native seed mix that has the, you know, aesthetic and ecological benefit rather than just not mowing and letting it grow tall. This would be more aesthetically appealing where hopefully you wouldn't have that as much with residents, but certainly from a usage standpoint, we'd want to be careful where we do that we're not taking away someone's recreation area. And it could add, we haven't, so another part of this is the disc golf course, and however that would be done in with these improvements, that disc golf course can work through those. We didn't want to have the disc golf course dictate where things would be placed. But again, those native plantings and the trails through there would work. We want that to work well with the routing of the disc golf course, however that's updated, but that could add some kind of appeal to the disc golf course as well, rather than just the open area. But again, we don't want to make it too complicated either. So.
Mike, so my feedback, I would like to see the baseball fields kept, and what you have is H, you could make into a natural field, not artificial turf. Soccer's here to stay, baseball's here to stay. Pickleball is a bit of a trend. I don't know how long that's here to stay. But my main problem with this is the maintenance involved in a splash pad and a fitness court and permanent cornhole and a bicycle pump track. I think those are, in my opinion, those are kind of unnecessary. I think they're expensive to maintain. We have a pond, which could become an ice rink if we had a cold enough winter. I guess I feel pretty strongly that we can leave some of this unplanned. Let's just leave some open space. I mean, I think it needs to be upgraded and fixed up some, but it seems over planned to me. Like you got to put something everywhere, and I would like to see less. Less is more, in my opinion. So
Okay.
that's my 2 cents.
Okay,
I have a full list of questions and comments.
good. Feedback is
I'm
good.
glad we saved you.
I was trying to think. Okay. So they're just randomly written down as.
It's
we're
fine.
going through this. So, couple things. One, I think that, there's current things that we have, like current amenities at the park that are being used, that not every one of these plans addresses, that do need to be fixed or upgraded. A couple of them just thinking, and again, they're in some, but maybe not all of the plans, but the bathrooms, the dog park, I think needs to have improvements that are not typically addressed in any of these plans. And that is a high usage item. The current fields, it'd be interesting to hear Director Zwick. Am I saying that right? Okay. Director, I just know Dan, but Director Zwick. His opinion as well on our current field situation. I know there's a lot of issues with drainage and stuff, but I feel like all three of these plans were almost taking this as if it's a brand new park again and looking and redoing some of the stuff, but a lot of it's just all new stuff. And I think that one of the biggest complaints from residents is the upkeep and the maintenance of the current things that we have here. And so, yeah. So I'm going to go through a bunch of my comments and then I think I'll make like a suggestion that I think for the board, that I think that we could talk about what we would want to do moving forward versus really deciding on the three plans that were presented to us. Because personally, I don't think that I'm ready to say any one of these or what we should do, especially having no.
Yeah, and it wasn't meant that for you to pick one of the three, for sure. This is a way to kind of present the different ideas that and how they impact other ideas in the park. So certainly the expectation is it would be some sort of hybrid of these and working towards that with your feedback.
So current fields, the current playground that we have, I don't think addressed any of them. And I think that's probably one of the newest things within the park that has been, I know you probably weren't here, obviously, but I think that's been the most recent where money has been put into was the playground there. And just looking at the survey results, I think that is used a lot by residents. So looking at what we need to do to either upgrade or maintain that current playground. The disc golf improvements, and then another thing that's not addressed in here are the roads and parking lots,
And
I use this park on occasion and they're not the best. They do need to be redone as well.
And I will say like the current roads, the maintenance garage, some of the maintenance, deferred maintenance and other things like that. That's something that will be in the master plan report and the action item list will be done regardless of, what new stuff is added that, certainly those will want to be taken care of.
Well,
There was the Parks Committee, I think when you were still on it, we had the list from all the members of kind of the things that we wanted to see. So a lot of those will be addressed in the master plan report with the action items where they aren't shown graphically on these plans. Some improvements with the dog park, the tree planting, the road maintenance, some items like that. Lighting and security is another one. And also, we need to talk about just, one thing that we've been talking about in the Parks Committee is the rules and parks ordinance, how that ties in, especially with evening usage. So those are things that will have some recommendations and, some stuff in that master plan report.
So, and then the other thing that I think is just hard for me going through some of these is that there's some things that have been added, like the cornhole or the couple of different things that were not even listed on the survey as options for people to pick. So I don't know. Again, the board wasn't part of the survey, which I think is semi-frustrating, that I do think that we talked about that when the survey was here, that it would have been nice if survey questions came to the board before they went out to the public. Because I don't believe in asking people if they want something, which it's not on here, but specifically like a turf field, if it's going to cost us $1 million to put in, and who knows how much the maintenance is going to be yearly or how long the lifespan of a turf field, that might not even be something that we can afford to do. So I think it's hard that we had, questions put out to the public for things that they might want that the board never even got to look at to see if these are even options that we can really afford. And I think that that's not fair to the board now to be trying to make decisions on something that the public's already looked at and given their input and their opinion on when we didn't get a chance to look at those survey questions before they went out. So I think it's odd though that there are things in these, like the cornhole and different things that were not even an option or not addressed on the survey, but then decided we wanted to add them, but the public didn't even say they wanted them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's a pretty minor item that we didn't include I mean, the survey, we couldn't make it half an hour long, we had to keep it short enough that people would be able to take it. But no, I mean, yes, I think that any of the major main items were on the survey, and again, that was reviewed with the Parks Committee, with Supervisor Lesperance and Manager Smith and others. Apologize, we didn't come to the board with those questions beforehand, but it was heavily reviewed.
Yeah, I just,
So,
again, we can't go back. It's been out to the
Yeah.
public. And all we can do now as a board is kind of look at the questions that we're asked to see what the public
And-
wants. Because that's what our job is to spend
And the-
taxpayer money
the
on
next,
amenities that they want.
one of the next things we wanted to do also is have these concepts, we wanted to come to the board first, but have a public open house where these can be displayed and get more feedback. But it was discussed and thought it'd be good to come to the board before doing that.
Yeah.
So,
I think so. So my suggestion, and anybody can pipe in. I just think that as a board, and again, I'm looking at the finance side of a lot of this, is that I think that we need to have you meet with Director Zwick and Manager Smith on our current amenities that are being used and that the public is using and that everybody likes, how much that's going to cost when it comes to upgrading what we currently have, to not throw everything out to make a whole new park. I think that's a waste of money if there's things that people are using and that we can just upgrade what we have, knowing that they will be used. And then personally, I would rather see as a board, the different options within the park come to us with the dollar amounts associated with them, even if they're just rough dollar amounts.
Sure.
If we're talking about, one option is to put in a turf field, which is on all three of these concepts, but yet was, and this is just improved soccer fields, not putting in a turf. It's just talking about improving soccer fields on the survey. It didn't say anything about a turf field. It was nowhere near one of the top 5 answers from the public. So personally, I don't feel that it's fair that we have 3 plans in front of us with $1 million soccer field on them that nobody, whether they be homeowners, renters, or non-residents, put in even their top 5 to top 6, top 7, top 8 answers for what they wanted improved in the park. So I would personally rather see us have you meet with them, come up with all of these different pieces and parts that are within this park so that we understand as a board how much they cost to put in, how much they're going to cost as maintenance yearly, because that's one of our big goals as our board is to maintain our parks and not just put something in and let them sit. And then as a board, I think we can look at them and take them back to the Parks Committee, let them decide on 20 amenities that could possibly happen within this park, what they feel the top numbers are and rate them. And then we can look at the survey results. And then as a board, we can kind of decide, you know what, these are the things, Mike, that we think that we can afford and maintain as a township. And these are the things that we want you to put into your plan. And then you can go back and design 3 different designs on how those fit in within the park that we have and how they would work for us. That would be my suggestion.
Well, I think it's a good idea to have a price tag before we even start, because that could be a deal breaker right away. We don't want that. It's too much money. It's already
And then
gone.
maybe it's not money up front, but it's maintenance that we can
Exactly.
afford to continue.
So
to
we
do.
do need a ballpark figure before we can
Yeah.
even.
And that's where I'm going. I want to know the maintenance and life expectancy of.
Like a
that
turf field.
facility.
I mean, how long is the turf field expectancy, would you guess?
10 years.
Yeah. So it's gonna cost us,
Probably.
yeah, sitting out in the sun.
Will we recoup that? Would we break even after 10 years by renting it out to AYSO and other?
no, no. And this, again, that'd be a synthetic turf or an improved lawn field where it's regraded and seeded and irrigation. It's the same amount of space. So again, these were graphic representations to get a discussion tonight on what elements you would like to see and what you wouldn't like to see
Yeah.
in there. So,
And
you know, knowing that synthetic turf is something that you are
You
pretty
can-
strongly opposed
And
to.
it's not, you
then-
can bring that back to us, but my point is, I think that the three concepts we have are giving us no idea how much this is gonna cost. I mean, you know, I might want a Lamborghini tomorrow, but can I afford to pay the payments the next time? I don't know. I mean, I can't come to somebody and ask you which of these things you want when we have we're in charge of making sure we can afford things, and we have no idea,
Yep.
looking at these, how much any of these cost. This isn't, I don't think, any of our wheelhouse, what we do for a living. So we have no idea, and I don't think it's fair to bring these to us and without any kind of other options or without looking at the different pieces. So my suggestion from the board would be to put this back to you and the Parks Committee and the Parks Director to decide, look at the different things, come up with what you think we really need or would want. If we could pick, however, I don't care. I mean, you could give me a list of 50 things and put them in order 1 to 50, what you most want versus down. We can look at the survey results and the cost associated with them and decide what we can and can't afford based on those options. And then you can go back and make a plan for those and how they would fit within the park. To me, that's, I don't know. I mean,
One
maybe I'm
thing-
crazy.
Yeah.
That's
No.
common sense.
Well,
to say
you
that.
are, we're all crazy, same kind.
The-
And one thing you haven't had, so this is the rec park has been, a source of complaint, or at least has been on the to-do list since I've been here for 4 years. And so you've been patiently waiting, but the big thing was not having the capacity, especially with staff. Like we kept hearing from the public how run down it was. We've had a couple of parks directors, but luckily now this is kind of Director Zwick, this is right up your alley, and you are brand new to this. So this project has been out there a while, but I guess that's what you've been saying,
It
to
is.
kind of,
There's another piece to this too. I think that personally, I think we should see at our next board meeting as well. This is for you guys. You know, I think that my understanding from Dan is that there's also a lot of equipment we don't have currently for what this park even is. And I think at our next board meeting, it would be nice to see an RBI of what we need and how much that's gonna cost. And if for us to look at to decide whether we wanna amend the budget for next year and add at least the minimum maintenance things that he needs to do his job to at least get the park usable for what is there.
Manager Smith, do you want to, that's one of the discussions.
Yeah, if I can, and then I'll throw it over to Dan for some comments. So I think there's a lot of good conversation going on. And I think what we should take away from this is all really exciting because it's never been a priority before. And I don't think that we've had someone that has the expertise like Dan does and like Sydney does. So, and then Mike's, professional experience too with being the designer, but to your latest comment, there's a lot I got to go through, but to your latest comment, Dan and I did start to have some conversations, and yes, there is probably at least a couple $100,000 in equipment that is needed to maintain what we currently have. That has never been requested of the board, has never been obtained by the township. So to look at upgrades to a park where the assets that we have, the amenities we have not been optimally taken care of or used or promoted. I think that it takes some discussion, and yeah, we're not going to be able to go back and recoup all of that, but we can do some things to move forward to improve the amenities we have, and then look at some of these and come up with a feasible concept that I think would be amenable to everybody. I think one of the things that, from myself that I look at is we just got to make sure that we look at the long-term maintenance costs as well. So the upfront costs and the design and how to use it, that's Dan in his area, but from an overall budget perspective, and actually the budget director's here tonight too. I'm not saying that just because she's here, but that is truly going to come into play because in every year we have to properly fund the maintenance of it, because otherwise we'll be right where we are today, which is it never was. So I like the idea. I think it pause and slow down the process a little bit. I don't think that that's wrong. The parks master plan is a guide. It's not it's just like the township's master plan. It doesn't mean that it has to be implemented. When it does, it gets updated every 5 years. No way do I think that we start over, but I mean, if that's the wish of the board, then we definitely can meet and go through and pick out some of these areas.
And,
So-
you know, we had met, the four of us several times, over the last few months, going over these concepts, and producing these. And, you know, we were really tasked with, okay, let's think big and what do we want this park to be long-term? What could it be? And we can always work back from there, but certainly there's some larger dollar items in here, and it could take 10, 20 years for that funding to come through. But if you have the plan and it's something that the community wants, then you know, you have a plan in place and someone sees this and says, okay, I have my company had a great year. I've lived in Cascade forever and I want to have my name or my company's name to live on as a pavilion or the splash pad or synthetic turf field, whatever it may be. So certainly the expectation is not to just implement this right away. And I should have had rough pricing that would have been easier for your review. So I apologize for not having that ready tonight, but really the goal tonight was kind of like what you were saying. All right, what amenities do you like? We have the survey input. Here's how this could be, you know, we want to listing the amenities and seeing what we like is good, but we also need to see how that fits into the space in the park. So this exercise was doing that, seeing how one aspect could have a kind of impact the rest of the decisions with the plan.
And
So
Mike, you haven't had a lot of time. Dan is pretty new. And this had been started before, but I think the two of you are able, and Jade, you know, internally to kind of sit together, meet and talk about the.
Yeah,
Cost
and
benefit.
it's just to say too, I mean, this is happening, it did happen quick. I mean, the concepts, I think we just reviewed them a few weeks ago and then, you know, we're bringing them to you first because that is the proper channel.
Yeah,
And I think
100%.
in the past, I mean, this is where the budget starts and it's where the budget stops. So we've got to make sure that that this board is our opinions are put into this plan moving forward. The other thing that Mike touched on, which I think is going to be key, is definitely phasing this in. This isn't going to happen overnight. It's gonna be very similar to the village program that we're working on as well, village project. So I think we can definitely go back to that drawing board. And there are some elements in here, and we don't probably have to hash those out tonight, but there are some things that I have some strong feelings about that should or should not be in here for various reasons. And I know Dan's the same way. So those are things that we can come back and adjust these concepts and come back with some. Now, the estimated pricing though, that's such a scary slope to go down because depending on how you phase it, if you don't do something for another 4 years, that pricing is
No,
out the window.
yeah, no, and I get
But-
that. I just think like, if we looked at today's pricing and we said, oh, you know, the turf field's $1 million and this
Mhm.
cornhole's $5,000. I mean, we have an idea in 5-10 years, one's gonna be really expensive and one's not gonna be very expensive. And I think right now, looking at these, I have no idea how much any of this would cost, like none. Do you know what I mean? And so I
Yeah.
think that we do
Mhm.
need to see some sort of dollars with it, some sort of maintenance dollars associated with the things, because, you know, again, when we talk about putting on, your comment about putting it on a master plan, because somebody might come in and say, you know what, I want to buy a turf field for the township, you know, or I want to buy the exercise equipment to put out here. We still have to maintain it.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, that is gonna be ultimately the township's dollars that are maintaining these things. So there might be things, I have no idea what a turf field, if you have to do any maintenance. And if you do, what if it's $500,000 a year? I don't know.
So
I have no idea.
my recommendation would be when those are implemented, that, you know, that funding source, especially if it is a donation funding source, that some of that money is withheld as an endowment for maintenance, because 100%, the last thing we want to do is put in this shiny new thing that 5 or 10 years from now is run down and can't be maintained because we don't have that. And I've seen that happen before. And sometimes it's even been discussed in a meeting like this. And then a few years later, you have new leadership or
And they don't
board
do it.
members, and then, you know, or it's 5 years till that project gets implemented and they don't, you know, plan for that maintenance or have that endowment funding or whatever it may be. So no, that's 100% important.
And I think it would be good to see where, like, I mean, when we talk about current field, whatever we talk long, let's say we keep our turf field in the plan. Right now, because it's nothing we can really afford to do right away, we do need to talk about feasibility of where it's at, and that's where Dan comes in, like, where are we gonna currently have a soccer field, and where are we gonna, so that right now we have something in that location that is maintained and is kept up, and then if 5 years from now, somebody comes in and says, I'm gonna pay to turf that field, we're not redoing the whole plan, you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
it still
No, and
fits
that's-
in the pieces that we have.
That's the balance we need. And kind of like with the baseball field, it's like, all right, I think we're willing to put in just a little bit of money to make them playable, see how they're used, and it can inform more longer term decision making. But you certainly don't want to put in a bunch of money and have it go to waste.
So Mike, I know that what you do is plan. You like to draw things. You like to make it beautiful and add all these things, but I've lived in Cascade 39 years. And when I came here, the park looked essentially the same in terms of layout. I mean, there was a pavilion added, but more, and it's been extremely sufficient. Okay, so I think that I think if we, upgrade or fix it up or, fix the road, fix things that are maybe a little bit run down, I think you see, the people would be quite happy with that. People have been quite happy with that. Like Wendy said, some of the things that are on here, they're not asking for. It's a really good park, and I love to see a park that has lots of place for kids to run around. Just plain old ordinary grass, so I'm kind of a minimalist on that score. So that's my opinion.
I can see what you're saying there, Sue, and I think maybe a good way to use this is to see what the general public picks out of these concepts as points that they really would like to see. If there's a handful of things that they really want and that people, clamor about, and the rest of it is just kind of, not exciting to them, then I think that kind of gives us an idea of what to target, because
And I
Yeah.
think, again, I'm gonna say this again, and you might not agree with me, but I think that we need to look at the cost associated before we put it out to the public. I don't think it's fair to put something out to the public that we as a township cannot afford to either put in at some point or maintain at any, like maybe it's too complex. I mean, we have a smaller Parks and Recs department now. We're just trying to build it. I just think that we need to look at it in some sort of piece before to say, yes, we can put these items out for the public to look at, because I would hate for us to put out the Lamborghini for the public to say they want, and we can't afford to pay.
Or, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease usually, and that certainly applies to township governance or leadership, what we hear. But I could see, we'll get there with just big maintenance that are ticket items that are just long overdue, but that will go a ton to get this park up to just much better. But then, so turf fields, right? I could see all the different, AYSO, tons of different organizations, just drooling to get in, and the reservations would go immediately. Same with like other, there's different private clubs or things that would love to have us drop all this money into turf fields or certain things so that they can rent them. But from our vantage point, I don't care what anyone, just as this is a Cascade Township Park, I only care what Cascade taxpayers want. I don't care about, unless AYSO or some other private organization is willing to, put big money down or recoup our costs. I don't care what people who don't live in Cascade, they're welcome to use it. But as far as our decision-making goes, cost benefit analysis, Ada's putting, well, I guess our residents are going to go to Ada when the splash pad goes in. So I mean, it's just some of the smaller, more specialized things often also happen to be the real big ticket items. So Dan, you're the one with all the expertise and everyone's talking and you're just sitting there brand new to this, literally knowing how to
Well,
be patient.
here's my 2 cents. Is I met with a company called Placer.ai, and some of you have heard this too. Between December 1st, 2023 and November 30th, 2024, we had 171,000 visitors to Rec Park from the perspective. Now, that doesn't mean there's 171,000 different people that, you know, I might have went 100 times, but that's a pretty good number. But if we take the base of what we have, and you give me the tools, and Jade brought that up, of about $200,000 in equipment, is I can make this a wonderful park, at least on the turf side. There's some infrastructure stuff we need to do with the parking lots and that type of stuff. But every time I go out there, I get irritated because I don't like the way it looks. And I'm gonna fix that. I'm not trying to be arrogant, but if I have the tools, I want people to go by there and go, wow. And when people come into our park systems, whether it's this park or any parks, I want them to go, wow, this is cool. And, you know, to your line there is what we're trying to cater to are of the residents of Cascade Township. And Sydney and myself want to take this park and program it for our citizens, for our kids. But on the flip side, when we're not programming it, we can recoup some of those costs and rentals. But we have to remember, the citizens and taxpayers are number one, and then rentals are below that. So if it's not being used, let's rent it. But if we can program it, which I truly believe we can, then that's what I feel we should do for Cascade. But if you take the base of what we have, I think we can build off of that base.
This is
I
good.
don't
This
think
is
it's, I don't think it's a total blower.
And then, Mike, you haven't had any kind of intern or as much. This should help too. You've been doing this without Dan or without a lot. We didn't really have a point person with the capacity to really look at this. So this should help your analysis too.
Yeah, I mean, it's evolved some in the last month or so. Been talking with Dan more since he's started, and having his input, but also having someone in the department starting, having the programming side.
Yes.
You know, 2 years ago, this could not even really seem feasible. And, you know, I've been involved with the parks and Cascade for, 5 years now, and there's been a lot of great change in the last 5 years.
It's hard
to
to,
the
it's like
point-
peeling an onion. It takes a while to get there.
Yeah, so and we wanted to keep building on that, and there really was, a lot of people in that survey wanted an ice rink. They wanted splash pad and pickleball. So this, this plan is addressing the public's desire. And so again, as Jay said, those happen to be expensive items and take maintenance. And to your point of, I like to plan and draw things. Yes, I love doing that. I really enjoy going through this exercise, but I also have been working with park departments for 20 years and seeing plans come to fruition, implementation, working with them through construction, and then seeing how those projects have evolved over 10 years from the maintenance side and what went well, what we could do better. Looking at splash pads, having a UV sanitation system and the maintenance with that. Sure, you save water when it recirculates, but the maintenance headaches with that and the sanitation concerns, I would not recommend going that route. A flow through system, it does use a little bit more water, but there's a lot less maintenance. You can have an activation switch. There's ways to still conserve water. From native plantings to Scott's point, they take a lot more maintenance the first couple of years to let those native species grow in and keep the weed species out. But after that, they don't take very much maintenance at all. But I've seen communities say, yeah, this is great. And then they don't maintain it. So my recommendation is do this, but you need to hire a company that will maintain this. You can't expect the township staff to be able to know all of these, weed species and all the native plantings. So, like you said, you need to have the funding to maintain it, to make it work. So.
And again, stages, right?
Yep.
I think that's an important thing to remember is we're gonna go back to the drawing board, but you know, like I just said, I think we have a base that we can start off with what we have existing. And then build off of that base and then do things in phases. So, you know, there, a phase might be 10, 15 years down the road, but I mean, or it could be short term too, but you know, I think that's when we go back to the drawing board, that's how we do it. Is we'll kind of work off what we have and then we kind of put things in phases. And see how it goes, so.
I'm just gonna say one last dumb comment, but I do appreciate hearing you talk about program. Most people have heard me say this. My kids are all old now, but when my kids were little, me and all the neighbor moms, we knew where every vacation Bible school was in this township because we would take turns each week taking our kids to vacation Bible school because there was no program anywhere around for us to take our kids to in the summer. So I do think that is a huge need within the township, and it is something that I think the residents really want. So hearing you talk about that's really exciting too.
The other thing we didn't have, we know there was a need, but you've got the township government, but then there was no liaison or no relationship with all the really good private businesses or just, you know, benefactors that are in our area that the township hasn't taken advantage of. At least since I've been here, we didn't have the capacity to do that, but we do have that with.
If I can just, it really isn't about this particular park, but I think it's a good thing to bring up is that, you know, that we're here talking about this park tonight, but we just put significant money into another park that is probably the gem of the township. And that got started, you know, quite some time ago, and we still have to address the long-term maintenance costs for that.
Which one?
To
is
your
this?
point, Friendship Park,
Oh, yeah, and that's not that'd only be the gem until
right?
Cascade Park.
But and so to your point about, you know, not knowing what's native versus not native and green and then the wildflowers, I mean, I don't think anybody understands the dollars are gonna have to go into the Parks Department to maintain that park as natural as it is because of the specialized education we're gonna have to get. Either our staff does it or we're gonna have to pay a company to come out and do it. So like, it's not just about rec park, it's about the whole thing. So we have to look at it collectively then.
Picture.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss.
Thank you, Matt.
I'm making really big brownie points tonight with the finance director.
No, this is good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming back to you guys. This is what, second or third time in front of the board? Like we've been, you know, it's good to keep us in the loop.
You know, so just to make sure, kind of going forward, getting costs for these items, to have a next discussion.
Yeah,
At the
and I
next
think
meeting
talking
and-
to Dan about what currently we have that he thinks he can make usable and nice. And so incorporating those things within here, but then adding, you know, some of the fun things, I'll call them,
Yeah.
as well, you know. And the new things, I think we need to look at each of them to know just how much they're gonna cost us and how much they'll cost each year for us to maintain. And then I think we can come up with things that were like, oh yeah, you know, these 20 things, whatever, but, and we do, I mean, I think the Parks Committee, this should be, you know, their specialty, so we want their opinion as well, like what they think out of all these things, you know.
Yeah.
It should go into this park.
Yeah, and they've been updates monthly, almost, we haven't had a meeting every month, but there will be one next Tuesday, so we'll get input from the committee members as well. So they did review these at the last meeting, but we'll be able to, continue talking in that process.
And Dan, do you have any recommendations, like next steps moving forward?
Do you think you can have some dollar amounts to us to the next board meeting for what we currently have?
Also good with the costs already, but we need some dollar amounts, so.
I
Yeah.
think we should see it officially so that we can decide whether we want to.
And
Because I know, I don't know, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm assuming this is the time of year.
We're talking about equipment or needs that just
Needs that you want, and this is probably the time of year where you need to start getting those approved so you can put your orders in to purchase stuff before this summer is what I'm trying to say.
this is stuff that we probably needed before, but we didn't
Have,
have, so nobody asked for.
If we're gonna see a list like that, it might be nice to have an inventory list with it of what you do have, just to get an idea of.
will that be a short list when you do have? He'll add that too right now.
You just have to remember with some of the equipment that's gonna need to maintain that there is some crossover of, but, I mean, we don't have a tractor. We have an old tractor that junk, yeah, but, you know, we could use that tractor out there for aerification, do slit seeding, doing other things, but then we could also take that tractor, put a flail mower on it and mow along the bike path system. So, you know, just because we think it's gonna be designated for there are specialized equipment that we need to maintain that. But there is gonna be some crossover with some of that equipment too that we can use in other areas of the township too, so.
Can I just clarify so I can make sure that we got our marching orders? Do you want this RBA and this request at the next board meeting?
If possible.
Okay.
But there's, yeah, or at an upcoming meeting.
Okay.
This is for.
Yeah, I just want,
Separate from the, let's proceed with this.
this is separate. And
Yes.
I just think it would be whatever Dan thinks.
Yep.
If the.
We've already
timeframe
started the
is that-
conversation.
The
and-
time frame is that he needs these approved soon, so he can get orders in, so he can have this stuff late spring issue time, whatever he needs them to do what he needs to
Okay.
do. If he doesn't need it until March, then we don't.
We
need to
didn't, we
see it
didn't
till
even
March.
know we needed it. We were just sick of getting complaints, people complaining about the.
Myself, my department is gonna work as hard as we can to make that park look nice, with the tools that I have, so.
Let us know what you need, which you have been doing. We appreciate it, but that's good.
We will.
And Mike, thank you. This is.
Yep, and thank you. I
Reasoner.
really appreciate the feedback. There's honestly, my worst fear is presenting to boards or parks boards, whatever, and there's just like, yep, looks good. When you know people are thinking things, and then you don't get a decision, then we have to make a decision based on what I think you may or may not like.
Very
And,
honest.
you know, there's a lot of people involved in, right now, there's obviously a lot of ways that this could get implemented. There's a lot of things in the survey that people want. There's a lot of dollars that would be involved to make it happen. So being able to get everyone's input to make a decision is the most challenging part. So I'll keep getting as much information as we can for you, and I'll enjoy working through the process.
Sounds like your artificial turf idea is dead. That's what I picked up.
Well, I'll still get information.
Keep it in where we have a nice soccer field. If, like, hearing you say, maybe someday somebody will want to give us $10 million to put in a park and a turf field and maintain it. It
Yeah.
could- Yeah.
And we would
so it
accept
can-
that
Well-
gladly.
There can be different ranges of pricing. So we
Right.
come back,
Yeah.
there
Right,
will
but my-
be.
Right, my point is that it can be in there, but it would be nice to see it where we currently can have a grass field that we can maintain appropriately in the time being, so
Oh,
that,
definitely.
you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, and that's would be, you know, that field, is that something that could be a grass field
For now,
easily
and
for
we can
10
make it
years?
nice, And people can use
The
it.
synthetic turf
See how
field
much
could
they use
be
it. Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah, didn't Cascade Hospital for Animals do the big upgrade to the dog park? I think it was like 5 years ago or four or 5 years ago, I think. And then just try to think of like
I think it's been a long.
public
time.
Yeah.
and private
Wow.
I think
partnerships.
before I
Yeah.
got in.
I
You
want
know,
to say
the-
it's more than that.
If the board chooses in the future is, you know, I've stated this, there's field naming rights,
Yes.
there's corporate dollars, but I think there's companies in this community that want to give back. And, you know, if the board chooses to do that, we put their name on it and, you know, they, give us some corporate dollars, and you can really go a long ways if you go chase those dollars, if the board chooses to go that direction.
No, well, I'm just gonna say it's glad to hear you say that because
How about your marching
keep my
orders?
mouth
You go
quiet
ahead and
about
chase,
previous.
go ahead and chase those.
I got a lot of marching orders.
Just go fix it all, Dan.
We'll prioritize them.
Thank you.
So,
No,
yep.
this is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Thanks.
Good start. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Article 5, public comments. So tonight's first session of public comments will be on anything that's scheduled for tonight's agenda. We've got upcoming appointments to committees and commissions for 2025, fireworks for next 4th of July, and some budget and financial stuff. So anyone wishing to comment on agenda items? You are welcome right now. And if not, there will be an opportunity to comment on anything, whether it's on the agenda or not, following the board's business. Okay. Approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion or discussion?
Shipley makes a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented this evening.
Support.
The motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Nordhook to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 7, financial actions, specifically invoices scheduled to be paid December 12th. Is there a motion, discussion?
Make a motion to approve the financial actions.
Shipley supports.
I don't have my
Where my
agenda in front of me
agenda went
because
either.
it didn't print off on both sides, my computer screen.
Here.
Sorry, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Article 8, having no one.
Take a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I motion.
Okay, that was a motion by Treasurer Coruscant, supported by trustee Shipley to approve the financial actions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 8. No unfinished business. First item of new business, 091-2024, approval of the 2025 Independence Day fireworks. Manager Smith?
Sure. This is a standard RBA that comes before the board every year. We share the cost with Ada for the Independence Day fireworks display. The cost has not increased from last year. The agreement is the same. I've been working with Julius at Ada Township, so just looking for approval tonight.
Have there been any complaints or comments about the fireworks?
No, not that I've received.
Cost is the same.
It is.
Further discussion or a motion?
Shipley makes a motion to approve the Independence Day firework jointly with Ada.
Support.
Motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Rissy to approve the 2025 Independence Day fireworks display as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item 092-2024, approval of the payment of claims at year end. Manager Smith, anything you want to say before we hand it over to Lorna?
I do not.
Thank you, Supervisor. The payables that you just approved for payment tomorrow, we cut checks tomorrow, were included in the packet that went out last Friday. So that means the invoices that we received through about December 4th or 5th have been approved. This body will not meet again until January. Actually, the beginning of the second week of January. That's a really long time to not pay an invoice. And guaranteed, we're gonna have late fees. And there's only so many times we can go to the vendor and ask for forgiveness. So instead, we are coming to the board and asking for pre-approval for the township manager and myself to review the invoices that are coming in and pay those invoices if holding those invoices would create a late fee. We're not going to go through and pay things willy-nilly. This is very much financial stability and conserving resources. That's what this action is looking for.
I'm just gonna say, thank you. I know. We had I think it was one of our summer meetings that we had on stretch, and when we had the invoices, there was all these late fees, and I know I was like, why are we paying late fees? So,
Yeah.
thank you.
And we will,
Thank you.
and we'll generate a report for the January 8th meeting that'll show what was paid during that time that was underneath this
Thank you.
request.
Yes.
I think that this is a good business. Financially, it'll keep us straight and level and avoid extra unexpected fees against our budget.
This is one of the results of having you in as the finance director. We never had this presented to us in the past.
Shipley makes a motion to approve the payment of the claims at the year's end as seen needed by the township manager and the financial director.
Support.
Just to clarify, it's through January 8th in the thing. Is that the date you want?
Yes.
Okay,
That's the
so it's
next
through
board meeting.
January 8th.
Yeah, January 8th.
So that's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Nordhook to approve the payment of claims at year end as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 093, 2024, approval of the budget amendments for 2024. Director Nencherini, sorry.
Thank you, Supervisor. A budget is a plan. That plan ends at the end of the fiscal year, which is December 31st. By state law, budgets may only be amended when we are in the budget. So we can't look back in January and make changes. So attached to this RBA is a list of requested budget amendments that we've identified already. There's about 19 or 20 more business days. And I'm looking for board authority through Jade also to make budget adjustments as necessary to maintain compliance with state budget rules. The budget versus actual is listed in the audit. And so it does receive state attention, and all of this is to keep off the state's radar.
And just to bring it to light too, that with these budget amendments, now granted, we still have to have the audit at the end of the year, but this is actually $23,000 to the good in fund balance. We're not asking to take anything out of fund balance with these budget amendments.
I'm just gonna say, I appreciate your summary. It's so nice. I know, again, just last year, years past, it's been a nightmare to try to go through each line item and see where there was adjustments. And I think your summary with the information afterwards saying why that adjustment was being made. And for this to be in our packet so that the public can see this and be very transparent about it, I really appreciate. I think this is easy for people to read, easy for people to understand, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. While Jade was talking, it occurred to me that there will be more adjustments that I need to make. They're very technical. As an example, we have about $1.5 million spent on Friendship Park. That project came to the board a couple different times. And I'm comfortable that all the expenditures, all the money we spent is proper. That may not have been spent in the greatest place. So accounting wise, I may look to move that expense. And when you move an expense, you would also need to move the budget. And just the act of moving the budget is a budget amendment that would need board authority, even though we're not changing the expenditures, we're just moving them accounting wise. So what I'll be doing is very technical accounting and budget work. Certainly not creating budgets for any projects that the board has not seen many times.
What accounts they can. I make a motion to approve I'm gonna read this word for word. The attached amendments to the 2024 budget additionally authorize the township manager and or his designee to review and approve budget amendments that are identified between December 12th and December 31st. Further direct that any budget amendments process during that time be included in the next board meeting packet for review so that we as a board can see them. And again, the public can see them.
Support.
The motion by Treasurer Forstange is as stated, supported by Trustee Rizzi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Director Nencherini. Really appreciate it. 094, 2024. The approval of the 2025 Township Board and Commission's meeting schedule. Manager Smith?
As is customary every year, this is the meeting schedule that'll be posted, needs to come to the board for approval for all boards and commissions. There were some change in dates due to holidays. We did that this year as well, especially for the months of November and December. You will see that there were a few boards and commissions that changed their start times. And those are all notated in the schedule.
I just wanted, it was brought to my attention by a member of the planning commission that the meeting schedule for the planning commission is supposed to be approved at a planning commission meeting prior. So in the future, I guess we just need to make sure we do. I don't see why they would have a disagreement with this schedule. I guess that's what the bylaws state, so we just need to try to make sure
Our
we follow
township
those.
bylaws?
The planning commission bylaws, and I'm not sure if it mentions it in the ordinance that creates the planning commission or not. It might.
Okay,
I'll take care of that. And if there's any sort of concerns, we'll have to amend the schedule.
I know, the exact schedule didn't go out. I don't like the dates, which again, it's carrying through what it was last year. But I know the time change to the planning commission did go out to all of the planning commission meeting or members in an email. And their input was taking that with this consideration to change it. Again, I don't think all the dates came out to them, but I know the time change came out and
I think the way it was worded is it's supposed to come in the November meeting, and then it comes to the board in December, but yeah. So just to make a note for next year so that we do it that way. With that, I would make a motion to approve the schedule.
support.
motion by trustee Rizzi, supported by treasurer Corstange to approve the 2025 boards and commissions meeting schedule without any changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Last item of new business 095-2024, and that is approval of board and committee appointments. This is the supervisor's recommendation pending board approval. I think I'll just start with handle each committee or commission separately, if that's all right with you.
Are we voting separately?
Yeah, not per member, but per body. So first we'll start with and this is in the packet. First, the Downtown Development Authority. This would be reappointments to both openings, Scott Vogel and Michelle Clayla. Both of those terms would be for a second term expiring 2028. Is there a discussion, motion?
Move to approve.
It's a motion by trustee Rizzi, supported by treasurer Corstange to approve members Vogel and Clayla for reappointments to the DDA. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, Planning Commission.
Zoning.
Oh, zoning board.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped around because I just didn't do it in order. We can do that. It was just because the representative from the planning commission was gonna go to zoning appears, so, but no, we'll do it as written. Zoning Board of Appeals. Recommending Timmy Nordhook, it would be the township board rep. His term is concurrent with his term of service on this board, and he replaces trustee McDonald. Next would be planning commission member Alan Rowland, and he would be appointed to his first term on the ZBA after Ralph Moxley's retirement at the end of this year. Is there a motion or discussion?
Ripley makes motion to approve the zoning board of appeals.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Rizzi, to approve members Nordhook and Rowland to the zoning board of appeals. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Pathways Committee, just one reappointment at this time, member Rick Brown, and his term would be for a second term expiring in 2027. Is there a motion or discussion?
Move to approve.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Rizzi, supported by trustee Shipley to approve Hook. Infrastructure Committee, trustee Shipley, myself, supervisor Lesbrunz, and then trustee Norddyke. Public Safety Advisory Committee, that would be trustee Shipley, trustee Nordhook, and trustee Rizzi. And last, Governance Committee, although that would likely never meet, that would be clerk Slater, treasurer Corstange, and supervisor Lesbrunz, all being the officers, elected officers. Discussion or motion for these standing committee appointments.
I make a motion to approve the appointment.
Shipley supports.
It's a motion by clerk Slater, supported by trustee Shipley to approve the standing committee appointments. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Stay tuned for a few more appointments in January. And thank you, everybody, for your interest and application. That concludes this meeting's business. Last session of public comment. So now's the time to comment on anything, whether it's on tonight's agenda or not. Go in person and then we can see if anyone has any virtual comments. Good evening.
Good evening. This is my first time up here doing public comment, so bear with me. See the clock. My name is Richard Shaftsman. I live at 2471 Burton Woods Court. I've been there for 18 years. So that's up by Burton Park. A lot of changes are happening up there, some which are bringing concern. First, I'd like to state that there are rules in the park which are good, but there's also rules that I think are overbearing. And we have a neighbor that feels like it's their job to enforce the rules. And they're becoming overburdensome to our community and to our neighborhood. Today I walked up there, 13 signs on what not to do. We can't park now all the way up the road. There's no parking signs past where it says no motorized vehicles. There's an additional no parking signs. There's a sign for some of the township park rules for the park on a sign, but I don't think it includes all of them. So a couple questions, rhetorical questions I have is, how many citations or how many concerns about parking have we even had? How many times have the police been called up there out of concerns of what's happening? I walk through the park every day and, there's a lot of signs about no walking after dark, no walking dogs off a leash, but how many ordinances do we have for the park? So what we're doing by placing all these signs is giving one neighbor, maybe two, power to enforce the laws that they want enforced when they don't follow other ordinances. And so I feel like we're being oppressed by what's happening up there. I think that there's a certain neighbor that gets way more attention and a lot more special treatment. Even though we might not be as loud or call or write, it's have an effect on us. When I walk in the neighborhood, I talk to our local neighbors, and this hasn't just been me. This has been directly our neighbors, other people I see in the park. One neighbor, their spouse is deaf. They wear headlamps to do sign language, and that's how they communicate. Walking on Cascade Road on our regular path creates concerns. We have motorized bikes that go down there at 25 miles per hour, one-wheel scooters. And walking through that park in that paved area at 6 o'clock at night, doing sign language with each other is safety for them. They can't hear down Cascade Road. And the more people that we have that are walking the park, that are responsible citizens, makes that park safer for everybody all the time. So I'm my time. Thank you.
I'm Mary Ann Shaftsman, and that's my husband, and we live at 2471 Burton Woods Court. And I just wanted to dovetail on what he said. We've been married for 7 years. It's awesome. And when I first moved there, though, I used to live in Easttown, and I used to be afraid at night because there were owls and this red-tailed hawk that I thought was trying to get me or something. And I used to be fearful. And then a couple of years in, I realized I had nothing to fear. Well, now I do, because I'm afraid this woman, she chased me on her bike last fall and scared me. And I don't want to walk up there. And he's like, you have nothing. I'm sorry. But I just don't feel comfortable. And I just, yeah, she just does weird things, flashes her lights at night when I walk by. That was before the no dusk sign. And I realized it gets dark early in the winter. It was like 7 o'clock. I just gotten home. So I'm going to try to plan my day that I don't ever have to go by her house because she might come out. I don't want to be chased. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, Scott Pinsolkma, 2570 Orange. Um, I brought this up months ago regarding the amount of snipe signs all over. I looked it up on the ordinance to find out what they were actually called. Those are signs that are put up on the telephone poles and all around the township. One of them seen for,
Oh, private signs?
yeah, like got leaves and they got a number, or hey, we hang Christmas lights or whatever. And so I looked in the ordinance. That's what I was doing back there during some of the park discussion. And that's called a snipe sign. Those aren't allowed. And I know obviously the staff and the buildings and grounds guys and all that are out and about, it's hard for them to get them off, but there's a phone number. If we had somebody from the staff, maybe call the company, hey, come get your signs, take them down. They're not legal, or we're going to fine you, would maybe be a good start. Because like I said, if you don't take them down, it just breeds more. And then you keep getting more and more. There's like the window signs, and then right near there, then you get the more got leave signs, or again, we hang Christmas lights where they put them in the ground right there. So again, it just makes the town look like crap, in my opinion, having all this temporary signs. And be one thing if there are businesses that are located in the township, maybe I'd be a little bit more forgiving on that. But these, I think, are outsiders that come over and just plaster these signs all over all over the place. So there's that. Also curious regarding how the hotel ordinance is going into effect, and if we're still getting complaints. I was just briefly looked at some reviews of some of the hotels that are still around. And again, their customers still aren't super happy. Some are, but not a lot. So just checking on that. But again, and also when will the pathways be cleared? Like, is there a minimum? Because I don't think they really got out there at all this last snowfall. Hopefully they'll come out for this one. But I don't know what the protocol is for that, because obviously those do, even in the wintertime, people do like to walk on those and, walk their dogs and still run, and they'll ride those big fat tire bikes. So just curious. So thank you.
Thank you. We can address those actually, Dr. Zwick, do you have any, what's our policy on the snipe signs?
I can address all of it.
All of it, manager comments?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments in person or virtually? Manager Smith, comments?
Yes. I'm just gonna go on the list from some of the questions and concerns that we had presented to us tonight. To the resident that lives near Burton Park, I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk with you one-on-one. As the board is well aware, there are issues with Burton Park and the pathway that goes up there. For anyone that doesn't know, that's actually an easement that's shared between the township and the private homeowners. Back when the easement was established by court order, there was only one house. So somebody in their infinite wisdom decided to go ahead and approve 3 more houses back there. And I don't know that that actually complies with the court order either. So we're working through and working with those homeowners to come up with some sort of resolution in regards to that easement, to maintain the integrity and the natural feel and the safety of the park, but also give them the access to the homes that they have. But more than happy to sit down and talk further with that. And I think you talked with Director Zwick as well, and him and I chatted today. So. We are also looking at the ordinances. I know this has been a topic for a while. For anyone that doesn't know, every park in Cascade Township has its own ordinance. So combining and having a park ordinance that refers back to policies and procedures for each park is a much better way to manage the parks, as opposed to 9 different or however many different ordinances we have for each park. In regards to the signs, just had a conversation that yesterday. We have a new zoning administrator that started 2 weeks ago. They've been out with the sheriff's office, and we have a whole list of things that are going to be priorities. So those things that are low hanging fruit are going to be taken care of. So I appreciate, Scott, the comments on that. In regards to the hotels, we are actively going through all of the applications that we have received, and we did receive applications from all hotels. None of them are complete. So we're working through that process. Again, I think since we started this process, we want compliance. We don't want to go to court if we don't have to. That even becomes more expensive. So we are working towards compliance with the hotels as opposed to just going out and not having a complete application and finding them.
Can they use the the incompleteness as a stall tactic or no?
They could, but they're not. I can tell you from the conversations that we've had and how responsive they've been, we are not receiving anyone that's giving us the cold shoulder and trying to do the bare minimum. So. Yep. And then plowing of the pathways, I'll let Dan speak to this as well, but we do have to look at everything from a priority perspective. So looking at how fast the snow is coming down, looking at the fire stations and the library and the parking lots that are more that have more traffic and are going to be a bigger priority than the pathways are. But we do look at all of those and prioritize them, and every storm is different. But I'll let Dan comment if he's got anything additional to add to that.
Really don't have anything additional. It's just like Jake was saying, there is that our, our township offices, the library, fire stations, those are our priorities. The last snow event was a lighter snow event. We looked at the weather. We didn't think we could even move snow on the pass, and then it melted. So some of it has to be, we have to have a couple, 2, 3 inches to be able to even move snow. And the last snow event we had, we just went out and saw the parking lot. So that's the reason the pass weren't done, but it melted within a day or two, so.
Great. Board comments, trustee Shipley?
Thanks for coming out. I know the weather hasn't been real nice. Please drive safely going home so that you're back here at the next meeting. Resident concerns, we can fix some of them almost immediately. Others take a little bit longer to work on. So the other neighbors that you have that have issues or concerns, please encourage them to come back again next meeting. And all I have. Thank you.
Trustee Rizzi?
No comment tonight.
Trustee Nordhook?
No comment.
Clerk Slater?
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
Treasurer Corsange?
Yeah, I do have a couple comments. One, I just want to thank Ralph Moxley for his service on the Planning Commission, the ZBA, and multiple subcommittees that he has taken a part in. I've worked with Ralph on multiple different projects within the township on the Planning Commission and subcommittees. And I just wanted to make a statement that his expertise and passion will be greatly missed. And he's done a lot of great work for the township. So just thanking him in that. And then I also want to thank the couple from Burton Woods Court for coming and speaking. We don't know what's happening unless we have people coming here and telling us what's happening. And I just wanted to let you know that your voice was heard and that we appreciate you coming. And that's it.
I just want to say, I do really appreciate, especially in this weather, all of you guys coming in person tonight. Thank you. And reiterate what Treasurer Corsange said, super important, especially because said it earlier, but the squeaky wheel tends to get the grease, but that's not what we want to have happen. I mean, our job is to be fair to all people and weigh the needs of the public. So really appreciate hearing your perspectives on it. And it certainly helps as we make decisions that are best for everybody, because what we don't want to do is be hypersensitive to the really loud people and then ignore, other people who don't have the same communication patterns, habits. So it's helpful to hear. Thank you. And also, sorry, the person who you were referring to, none of these private people are acting on behalf of the township. So enjoy your park. It's everybody's park, and it's everyone's easement too. An easement between those people and the township means it's an easement with the public people of the Cascade Township. So it's totally inappropriate that someone would be, vigilante policing our own parks. Merry Christmas, and I hope everyone drives safe. Is there a motion?
To adjourn?
So.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Adjourned. See you back in 2025.
Wow.
How come I always get the rule? I don't understand what you do.
Got my candy.
Then you get hurt.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe about 18 years.
Yeah, we just get the whole board out there. Right?
Death family, the husband and wife, that they're not. Yeah.
I'll see something windy a minute real fast.
Yes, in a snow. What do you mean? Yes. I try to do that. I'll see what's her. Well, my husband, I try to get him to stand around. Do what we can. Drive safe, everyone. Gonna be bad going home, I'm sure.
That was our only loss.
I do too. Don't just add a bunch of stuff. Make what we have. Yes. Make it really sharp. You just have to use all the space with something here and here and here. That's what annoys me. Overdeveloped. Yeah.
All right.
So much going on. Good night.
But no. But on the flip side.
That's nonsense. Nonsense. Don't need it. Up here.
Because it's not a I read it, but then I just remember before
There are. The next meeting like this. Yeah.
Well, that right, you did.
Oh, yeah, no, this is good. Guys, Merry Christmas. Yes. Thanks for making it. The roads were not good. Oh, you did? And there's a lot of accidents. If you're not in this round, you're getting- thank you for offering. Thank you for being here to serve. There will be a spot.
I know a lot of people.
Okay, thank you. Good. I know. Just lots to serve. Yeah. Yes. And it's.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. That was one of your. How about the night and day difference? Those are huge. Are you doing these separate or all one? Yeah. Trying to shove it. So, yeah, they want it and then I refused. That's why I didn't do it. Well, we've come a long way. Yeah. Yes. Well, yeah, that's a bad one too. That was a rough one. We've had some bumpy public meetings.